Okay, we'll get started with our next session. I want to introduce the session. Thank you again. This is the LDT Fall Symposium 2018. I want to welcome our next guest speaker, Kevin Jorgensen, and he is also an alumnus of the program, and I'll let him tell you about his current fun stuff that he's doing in instructional design.
Thank you. So yeah, I am a very recent graduate of the LDT program, well, let's just get right into my background because it'll go a little bit into that as well. But I'll be discussing about finding success in the training development job market, and because coming straight out of the program, I found a decent amount of success, and so I'd like to be able to share my ideas and tips and things that I did so that maybe others could benefit from it. So a little bit about my background. I come from a background of television production and photography, visual arts. I got my BA in cinema and television arts. I worked in Hollywood doing red carpet premieres, celebrity junkets, Hollywood news. Then I transitioned to photography, doing school pictures of all things, picture day. I did that for many, many years until eventually kind of got burnt out of it. Long work hours. I found myself, I was living to work, is what I say. I was living to work. Everything I did was for work. And it just didn't really work out for me very well. So I decided to transition. In 2015, 2016, I was looking for other opportunities when I came across instructional design and training and development. And it just checked all the boxes for me. The high reliance on visuals and communication and interviewing, talking with people, and then facilitating. It just matched really well with the skills I already had. So I decided to jump into that and do some research. I joined a variety of professional memberships, professional organizations, and then enrolled here at SDSU in the LDT program. And midway through the program, I got a position with the UPS store as an instructional design specialist. And that was wasn't my first step, my first job in instructional design. I'd done some subcontractor work prior to that, doing a bit of videos, of course, instructional videos. But this was my first permanent position as an instructional designer with a major corporation. And then I graduated just this past May here at SDSU. I graduated with my MA. And then within a couple months, I have been approached several times, several offers, and from a variety of other companies. And in July, I took a position as a training development specialist with General Dynamics NASSCO, where now I'm in charge of developing training for the entire organization, 17 different specialized skill trades. We're talking 3,000 some employees out on the construction yard. And NASSCO is a shipbuilder, one of the San Diego's, actually the nation's largest shipbuilders for both commercial and government military ships, non-warfare, usually supply ships and things like that. So yeah, to this day, I'm still getting offers. I'm getting calls from recruiters, and it's all because of this work that I've done in preparation, in marketing myself, and getting out there and just getting things in order to be ready for the job market. And the first thing I really did was I defined my goals. Very important to have your goals clearly defined when you're going out into the job market. What is it that you want out of your job? And as I said before, my previous position, I was living to work. And I realized that didn't work at all for me. It was too stressful. I was working long hours. So I defined one of my clear goals was I wanted to work to live. I wanted to make sure that my work supplied my life, not my life supplied my work. So that was my big goal. I came at everything from that approach. I wanted a healthy work-life balance. And so that was the overlying goal of everything else I decided. But then I also decided, what kind of avenue did I want to go into in training and development? Do I want to be a trainer, where I'm up in front of an audience and educating learners? Do I want to be a developer, constantly working on developing the PowerPoints and the CBTs, the web-based training, e-learning? Do I want to get into analysis, technology, soft skills, hard skills, all of that stuff? I made some decisions on what I wanted to do, and I decided instructional design, getting into the analysis and design and development and evaluation, the whole ADDIE model there is really what I wanted to do. And so I pushed towards that. However, as we'll go into a little bit later, I made sure I still was not so myopic in my views. I wanted to be able to roll with the flow. I wanted to, as new information, because I'm new to the industry, I wanted to be able to change and adapt as needs and new information became available. So I wasn't really precise. I didn't steer like completely narrow-minded towards that one goal. I kept things open. The next thing I did was I analyzed the competencies necessary to fulfill my goals. That was to find out what are my knowledge, skills, and abilities that are necessary to complete the job that I wanted to get. And I did that through a variety of research, by my professional organizations, by learning things here at the LDT program, looking at books. YouTube was a big help on that. I often would be YouTube, 10 things I wish I knew before I became an instructional designer, stuff like that. And I would get personal videos of people talking about their work and different things. So I wanted to find out what those competencies were. What are the skills I needed in order to succeed? And then I filled my competency gaps. I acknowledged, hey, I'm not so good at this particular thing. I need to learn a little bit more here. For example, I knew that note-taking was going to be a big thing I needed to be able to do as an instructional designer. Doing an analysis of any particular technical trade, I needed to be able to take notes really well, and that's something I'm not really that great at. I usually just consume information and just kind of keep it in my head, but I knew as an instructional designer working on a team, I was going to need to write notes and then pass those notes off to someone else to be able to work productively. So I went and developed skills in note-taking, interviewing, just things that I know, and also big web-based training design, Articulate, Captivate, Lectora. I just learned about all of those products, and of course Word, Office products. I went out and filled those gaps that I knew I had that would help me achieve my goals. Next thing I did is I went to display my competencies. I wanted to go and make sure everybody knew that I knew what I was doing. And I did that by, of course, resumes, plural, multiple resumes. I mean, they were all similar, of course, they're about me, but I wanted to have a few resumes that highlighted different skills depending on a particular job. A portfolio was a big thing. It's a big thing. I was actually, when I got called in from recruiters, and they say, look, you have a sample of your work. Oh yeah, I have my portfolio online. Like, you have a portfolio? It was a big, people were like, whoa, wait, you have a portfolio? This is weird. I haven't talked to anybody who has a portfolio, which I thought was kind of odd, but it worked. And then professional online networks. I really should have moved online because it's professional networks. Anything that you can get to display yourself, show off what you can do. So things like LinkedIn or Association of Talent Development, ATD. Just join those things, show off what you can do, and get out there, and people will see. Next thing I did, revise. Constantly revising what I've already done. And I want to make note, all of these things that I've done is not a waterfall methodology. I'm not going, starting here, moving down. I'm constantly going back to redefining my goals. I'm analyzing my competencies and filling different competency gaps. I'm doing all of these different things continually, just revising, trying it out, filling new things, and finding new information. Because I find that if you make a plan and stick to it, it guarantees a suboptimal solution. So you always have to be changing. And now some of the things that, resources. I found that constantly using and reusing the resources that were available to me is just incredibly useful. The more you use a resource, the better it gets, and it's exponential. The more you're on LinkedIn, the more you go to your professional networking events and meetings, the more information you're reading, the more people you're talking to, you become more knowledgeable, of course, and you're able to learn more, and you develop these connections with people that just start amplifying everything. And so I found the more I went to like networking mixers with ATD, I was getting more and more information. I was able to speak with more authority on things. I was making greater connections, and greater connections mean more opportunities, and it just exponentially grew. So it was just constantly using it, stick with it, and it works out so much better. Now, some of the resources I did use, this is going to be a slide with the most information on it, but a lot of it's repeat, so you'll see. Job postings. These are the sources that I use for job postings. ZipRecruiter, Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, and of course ATD. Got my resume out there on those sites, and then I was always looking for my job, the different jobs that were available in my market, and just constantly searching, looking into what are people asking for right now? What are the job positions? What are the skills that people are looking for? And so those are the sources I tried. Now I want to mention one that's I haven't seen too much advertising for recently, but one prominent job posting site was Monster.com. I avoided Monster.com. I can't recommend Monster.com, so if you're thinking of that one, I would steer clear. It's a lot of scamming going on there. So. Research. I wanted to research more about what was necessary to do my job or to achieve my goals, so I went to these places. Glassdoor again. LinkedIn again, ATD, YouTube, as I said earlier. I wanted to make sure I'm understanding the skills necessary and how people speak also. You know, there is a certain, well, we're kind of in an interesting, unusual industry that has its own different ways, different terms we use and different methods of speaking. So just doing the research and hearing people talk, you pick up on that, on those terminologies, and it really helps out a lot. It really helps in educating you. Marketing. This is where I was displaying myself. LinkedIn, of course. Portfolio. We've SDSU. It still provides a Portfolio membership, but I think anybody can create a Portfolio site and profile. I highly recommend that. Show off your projects that you're working on. If you're doing some school project, put it up there. If you notice that you have a lack of a particular skill, like let's say you don't have e-learning training or you don't have an e-learning project you're working on, go create something short, small, sweet, and put it up there. Just screenshots. Just show what you can do on there. Of course, ATD again is up there, and YouTube. I do a lot of videos, a lot of training videos, so I use YouTube as my conduit for that. Next thing is skill development. This is how I filled my gaps of competencies. And I went to lynda.com, also LinkedIn Learning. Toastmasters was a big role for me. That helped out quite a bit, not only for public speaking. No, I didn't really want to go into training and public speaking, but Toastmasters really helped solidify interview skills, but also planning, organizing, and leadership skills were developed there with Toastmasters. So I highly recommend that. ATD again, and of course YouTube. Who hasn't gone to YouTube to figure out how to fix something or another? So, and then lastly, networking. Network, again, you see all these are same sort of things. A lot of these resources you can reuse for a lot of different purposes. So this is where I would go and reach out and meet people and connect and make sure that I'm getting the right information and establishing those personal connections as well as professional connections all through these organizations, LinkedIn, ATD, and of course Toastmasters as well. Toastmasters being a very socially involved group. You're meeting in person there and speaking, and you can really also advertise yourself there with Toastmasters. So yeah, those are the resources I use. Now, a little bit more about other things that I did. I got a mentor. This was the biggest thing that helped me out. There's my mentor there, Jerry Campo. He spoke here last year. I went to the ATD mentor program, and getting a mentor. I got a mentor about halfway through the being here at SDSU, the LDT program, and that really put everything in perspective for me. I had somebody that I can bounce ideas off of. I can get the professional. You know, Jerry is a pro in the instructional design industry, and my mentor is a pro, and he really set me straight, made sure I knew what I was getting into, helped me establish my goals, helped me with my resume. So if anything, getting a mentor is one of the biggest things. Even if it isn't through a mentor program, go out there and talk to people. Find out from people, hey, can you give me some ideas, some tips? Can I bounce some ideas off of you? Establish that connection to the networking organizations and the resources available to you, and get somebody that's been in the industry for a while and get their information. And usually we're very happy. I mean, people in this industry, they want to share information. That's why we're in this industry. So who Who doesn't want to talk more about what you do? I love it. So next thing I did is, again, constantly revised and updated my resume. I have many different versions of my resume. I think last count I had like 42, and I'm at like version 7.5 right now with 5 to 6 different points in each one. And then I also revised my resume for a specific job to hit those keywords that job description may hit or was asking for. And so a lot of revision. After a while, I found that I didn't need to revise it as much. It really slowed down on my revision. I actually just recently been contacted by a couple of recruiters. They were looking to hire me for a position, and they said, hey, we'd love you to change your resume up a little bit. Make sure you hit these marks. I'm like, no, I'm happy with it. This is my skills. I don't think I need to change it. I'm good at this. So I didn't see need. After a while, I'm getting more comfortable with the resume. You don't need to update it as much. And so, yeah. Next thing I did is I logged all of the applications that I did. In a Google spreadsheet, and every single application, every single job option, lead, I put in there. I put the name of the company, the title, the date I applied for, the date it was posted, the date I applied for it, link, all the information that I got, the resume I used to apply for that position, and any responses that I got. I put as much information in that log about a particular job posting, just so I know I'm applying to sometimes 4, 5, 6 jobs a day, or different postings a day, and you get confused. You get a call from someone, hey, I'm calling you from this company. You're like, who am I talking to? Let me be like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, now I know how to speak to you. I won't push up these skills when I'm talking on the phone. I'll push these skills instead. So yeah, that's important. I saved all of those postings. I just downloaded them as a PDF, put them in the directory, so I can go back to them at any particular time. That also developed a history, so I can cross-check against future job postings to see if this job has already been posted. This is the point that I started realizing that not all job postings were right for me, even if it was specifically for a goal. Like I found a lot of companies are posting the same job over and over and over for over a year. And like I was just speaking with another person, actually my current or my mentor's current protege. We were speaking, and he said that he was going for a job that I applied for over a year ago. And so they're still looking to fill that position. And so that either means two things to me. Either they can't keep that position filled, or they're not really looking to hire somebody for that position. They may just be gathering resumes or something. There's something going on there. So when I see that, I'm like, wait a second, I applied for this job. I have the posting. It's the exact same verbiage. What's going on? So it's just a little bit of a red flag. I do a lot of risk assessment when going in for when applying for a job. I want to say, how risky is this job? How much time do I have to devote to possibly getting this position, and how much risk is there of me actually wasting my time? So I look at that, and these sorts of logs can help that out. The next thing I did is I created an online portfolio, of course, using Portfolium, but also YouTube. LinkedIn is another place you can do that. You can also just get your own website. That's probably the best way to do it if you have the resources to create your own website. There's Squarespace and Wix. There's a few other companies that will you can create your own website to really display your competencies. So that's where I put all of my LDT projects. There's actually one of my 561 projects listed there. There's another project I did here at SUSU, but for UCSD, and then of course some of my work that I did in the television industry. I wanted to put that all on there so people get an idea of the work that I do, the material that's available that I can produce for them. So that was a big help. And then for interviews, I prepared interview questions ahead of time. There's a lot of resources out there of what kind of questions are asked during interviews, and so I made a log of all of them, ones that can expect to get, and then I wrote out my answers. And before I would go into an interview or have a phone interview, I'd kind of review over my questions or my responses, and so I was a little bit more prepared. After a while, after getting a decent list of interview questions that you can expect, you learn that, I mean, you're not going to read this during the interview, of course, but you start learning the kind of general flow and the kind of questions you can expect, and it's a lot easier to just throw out answers to these questions without looking like you're stumbling around. So prepare for your interview questions ahead of time. Prepare those answers. And speaking of that, I took a lot of journal notes. One thing that's really helpful during an interview is telling stories, real life stories. And because you get a lot of questions, it's like, oh, when was a time that you had failed in one of your responsibilities and how'd that work out? Well, I knew that that's a question that comes up frequently, so I would often look for those sorts of stories in my life and work and write them down. And so I just remember what's going on, because then you don't want that sort of question, you're like stumbling, oh gosh, I have to think about something I did wrong, because that question does come up. It's nice to have that kind of ready to go, and or just little odd things that happen. I remember when I was working at UPS, we were under a strict deadline. I was trying to get a SME to review some content, and so and she kicked me like 2 days after I told her our legitimate deadline was, and she gave it back with all this unactionable comments and questions to me about her content. I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, this is not a great situation. So I wrote that situation down, because that happens in the industry. You will work with people, with subject matter experts, or people that make your job a lot harder to do. And so I wrote that situation down, how I dealt with it, so that way when it came up during an interview, I was ready. I didn't have to think about it. I'm like, I know, this happened to me. I wrote this down. I know exactly what I'm going to do. So I think that is about it. Oh, this is actually the biggest thing. Biggest thing, I never married an opportunity, although I'll say I lie, I did. Because it's hard not to. When you see that perfect job post, it's like, oh, this is just for me. This is the perfect position. This is the company I work for. This is the pay looks great. It's a reputable company. Oh, I want that position, and then it never happens. You get crushed. It does hurt. It does hurt. So I after that happened a couple times, and because you have to keep your motivation going, and you have no idea why you aren't accepted for a position. You may actually be perfectly qualified for this. You may actually be the best qualified person for the position, but you don't get it. And because there's a lot of factors that work. Actually, I gotta get just I would say is Joanne here? I don't see her, so I'm showing you the other one. She, I was speaking with somebody at an ATD mixer just the other night, and she had posted, or she had responded or applied for a training and development position at NASSCO. That position was my position. That was because I was a subcontractor with NASSCO, and they're converting me. And so they had to put the application on the NASSCO website. That got picked up by all of the Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and all of the sites. They posted it there. So a lot of people, even my mentor, he called me up and he's like, are you still working at NASSCO? I saw they posted that job. And I'm like, yes, they just had to do that so they can convert me over to a permanent position. And so that job posting was never available for anybody else but me. That was specifically made for me, but they had to post it publicly. And so people that were like saw that position were like, oh, that's the perfect position for me. I'm gonna apply for that. And sometimes, you know, an HR person may get their application like, oh, hey, we're gonna consider you for your position, not knowing that the position's already spoken for, and they might crush some people. And so don't marry an opportunity if at all possible, because you never know why you didn't get it. You could have been very good for it, but it didn't work out. So keep your motivation high, keep your confidence up. But because you were rejected doesn't mean that you're at any loss. And this is the last thing. This is the most important thing, actually. Always look for the next opportunity. No matter how comfortable you are in your current role, always be looking for the next opportunity. Again, I bring up my mentor. I say, get a mentor, very important. I learned this from him. He had a very good position with the company. He created a great product, he had a great team, but then the company stopped carrying the product. So his whole team was not necessary anymore. They cut him. He was out. And he took, I think he said, 4 or 5, maybe 6 months to find another position. That's because he wasn't on the lookout at all. He didn't have his foot out there. He didn't have his ears to the wall, listening to what's going on. I still get, no matter how comfortable I am absolutely in love with my position at NASSCO, and I'm very comfortable in it. I love it a lot. But I still accept calls from recruiters with job positionings. Because I never know when somebody higher up in my organization is going to say, hey, we don't need this department, or we're going to outsource something, we're going to get rid of you. You never know. And but also, not only for personal gain, for personal job opportunities, but also for networking purposes. I just recently got a call from a recruiter, a direct hire recruiter, who's looking to hire for a position in a company in Carlsbad. And I told them, we did a great phone interview, and it seemed like I'd be a pretty good fit, but it's not enough to take me away from NASSCO. And so I said, this may not be the greatest for me, but you know what? I know somebody. I know somebody that might be good for this position for you. And so I connected her with this person. And so I established a connection there with both the company, and I've gotten a little closer connection with my colleague too. So I'm developing a network, and I'm helping people bridge gaps. And that's what we do. We intervene. We create interventions for performance gaps. And if somebody is looking to post a job, that means they have a performance gap. So I'm going to create an intervention. I'm going to connect them with the right person so that performance gap is filled. So even if the opportunity isn't right for me, chances are I know somebody that it will be right for. And now, maybe in the future, that company is going to remember me, that I helped them fill that position. And also the colleague I refer to that position, they're going to know that I helped them get in that position as well, and we can all work together. I'm basically starting my own professional network just by referring people and getting companies to work together. So that was a big one. I highly recommend that. That keeps you doing something when you're out looking for a job, or when you're always. It gives a reason why you should always be listening out there and looking for a position. So those are the things that I did. Now I'd like to open up for questions or idea share. So tell us something about what maybe something you've done that's been successful. And but yeah, questions. Anybody? Yes.
I attended some workshop this week, and there are several speakers mentioned the mentors. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, how do you choose your mentors? I think it's very important.
Yeah. Well, I think Mary Jane just stepped out. She's the president of the ATD, and they have a mentorship program. So I highly recommend going and to her. I think she's going to be presenting just after this, and she may be discussing a little bit about the mentorship program there. But for my how I chose a mentor, it was actually funny. It was a speed dating situation. We just go and tour around and meet all the mentors, and we also get profiles ahead of time, so we kind of have an idea of who we're meeting. And the mentor I ended up getting together with wasn't my first choice. Since I have a television background and video production background, the mentor that I actually chose was somebody that also did that. He was somebody that did a lot of training videos, and so I thought that'd be a good connection. He did not choose me though, but my second choice was my mentor, and I was his first choice. And I chose him because we had a personality that connected really well. We had mutual interests. We're both into photography. We also lived close together. I'm in Poway, he was in Penasquitas, so it was a quick drive. And that is probably the most important thing. I did part of one of my research projects here in the LDT program was I did an evaluation of the Lavin Entrepreneur Mentorship Program. And we found in that research that the key ingredient to success in a mentor relationship is meeting, just getting together and communicating. And I found that that with being such close proximity with my mentor and being able to meet him, and him being so willing to meet and discuss ideas on a daily basis, we were meeting on a daily basis, or at least talking on a daily basis. That is what gave me so much out of the mentor relationship. So get a mentor that's close by to you, or you can communicate and easily contact. That is a big thing. But to also share some mutual interests, because you don't want to be with a mentor that you don't connect with. So I mean, it's a lot like dating. It really is. It's really, you want to find a relationship that works well, and it's not just all not just taking from the mentor. The mentor is a mentor because they want to get something out of it too. And so, the best way to learn is to teach sometimes, and that's what the mentor does get out of it. So be able to bring something to the mentor's plate as well, really help them out. So making sure it's a two-way street, quid pro quo there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
What is the ATT organization? I've heard of it before, but not familiar with it.
Yeah, it's the Association for Talent Development. I think it was formerly the ASTD, yeah. It's a professional organization for talent development specialists or professionals, so both trainers, instructional designers, just anything in this field. There's a national chapter, or there's a national organization, but there's also local chapters. And I won't go into too much detail about it right now, but Mary Jane, who's going to be speaking in the next session in the next room,
Yes.
yeah, she'll give you all the information about it. I highly recommend becoming a member, or at least looking into the website and finding what resources are available there, because they just had a big conference in San Diego a couple months ago, and it was like learning, design, training, development, sensory overload there, but it was just the amount of resources available through that organization that are so specific to our field was just fantastic.
Okay, Kevin.
Yes.
I was liking you all the time until you start directing people to the other room. While
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just glad she's not speaking at the same time I am. So actually, speaking of that real quickly, one other thing, get e-learning experience if possible. Even though you may not be using it, get some kind of development, get a fundamental understanding of e-learning. That will help you out as well in finding a job, because that's one thing everybody is looking for. But don't get stuck in that. Especially if you want to get a higher level management level thing. The manager does not necessarily develop e-learning, but needs to know how to do that. So sorry. I just thought there was an e-learning development or e-learning seminar going on. But I'm sorry, your question, was there something else? No? Okay.
She's speaking.
I'm speaking.
Oh, you're speaking. I'm really sorry. I'm sure you really love
I did get text from you. That's how we got this chance. Yeah, yes.
Right. Well, thank you, Kevin. That was.